Tired of winning the tailgate, but losing the games? We can't help that. But we can tell you what the hell is up with each team and what's going on across sunny San Marcos. Texas State fans, get on your feet. You're listening to Squaring Around with Jakob Rodriguez and Andrew Zimmel.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Squaring Around, episode 9. Andy, can you believe it? We've been doing this, I think, now for 2 months.
We're so close.
We're
close. Going for the big 1-0.
Close to the 1-0. Before we get started, I wanted to get some house stuff out of the way. When we first started this podcast, I was like, I know there's kind of a lot of podcasts now for whatever reason. But I wanted to do something very specific, kind of like what we did in college, a little alma mater stuff. And I had the goal of having 200 plays by episode 10. And I'm very happy to report that we are this close from 300. So we did way more than that.
So we'll probably hit 300 on this one, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, well, thank you to everybody who listens, to watch, that shares it, because, we don't do the podcast without you. So thank you for supporting the pod.
Yeah, shout out. And we're also on Twitter, and we're also on a bunch of places. If you include our YouTube stuff, we're already at way more than 300, maybe 500 or something like that. But
that's the one that we want to grow the most, right?
Yeah.
YouTube.
I want to get rich the fastest. So and some people have been basically all across the state. I've been everywhere, man. I'm talking about DJ Kinne and his crew of merry men, who have literally been all over the entire state of Texas. I don't know if they've made a trip to the Valley, but hey.
I don't think they made a trip to West Texas either.
They were in, I don't think so.
The I-35
Amarillo?
corridor.
They were in a school in Amarillo.
They live on the I-35 corridor.
Yeah, they were in our backyard for sure.
Wow.
In a bunch of heavy hitter spots. And you could see on Twitter, right? They have all those cool graphics and stuff now. That's hey, we're over here now, we're over here, and it's a dude thing. They're doing different stuff. It's really dope to see that happen, but it's hard for me to quantify that in my own head. I'm I don't know. And then I'm seeing kids get offers class of 2024, 25, 26 even maybe, and I'm just whoa, this is a lot, very fast. And not even, it would be one thing if we were in February, but we're not even in February yet. And so I took a very small sample size of just coaches replying to the Texas State coaches, high school coaches saying hey, thanks for stopping by and stuff like that. And I don't know, in the hour and a half that it took to make me this Google map, I came up with 45 schools that the Texas State coaches have been to. And of course, this is not every single school that they've been to, but this is just the first 45 probably that I saw in the mentions.
The random sample size.
Very random sample size. Not super random because, it's the first 45. So it's kind of numeric in that way, but still kind of it gives it some perspective. So yeah, there are a lot of Central Texas, some Dallas, some right along the line, Texas and Louisiana, Texarkana. That was kind of cool, just to kind of see it from my perspective, and then to see what they're doing. I think a lot of this is just to reestablish the coaching relationships in so many parts of these places, and because a lot of people don't get love like that. You're usually sending tape out to people and stuff like that, but.
You said about reestablishing that connection. I think Kinne has those connections. I think his coaching staff has that connection. It's reestablishing that Bobcat with these schools. It's all right, we know that University of Texas is going to stop by. If you're in Dallas, SMU, UNT are going to stop by, but it's getting Texas State stuff out there, getting those coaches front facing, getting those kids to make connections too. Because the funny thing about college recruiting, and I feel that's something we talk about a lot on this podcast, it's not only the fit on the field, it's the fit off the field. Does the kid vibe with the coach? Does the kid vibe with the culture that Texas State's trying to build? And a lot of guys don't, and it's weird, especially when you consider this is the third coach that Texas State has had in the last 7 years. You know what I mean? When you can put it in that perspective, it's hard to build a culture. It's hard to build what is Texas State football? What is Texas State culture? I think Kenny's bringing his own when it comes to like what the the bylaws of Kennyville are. What's when you talk about a Texas State football player under this administration, what is the difference between the last one and then Withers?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a brand thing, and I'm okay starting with at zero again, because I feel like whatever happened in the past didn't really happen. I know Withers basically cleaned up shop, and that's kind of like
I don't want to start at zero. I would really, really like Kenny to take the baton from what Spav had done, which was good community outreach, which was good national exposure. When you consider that the COVID-19 pandemic did, the only really good thing that the pandemic did was put Texas State on national TV more. When you think about that 2020-21 season, like Texas State was on ESPN, ESPNU, ESPN2, like we had a lot of nationally televised games, all things considered. So, Texas State, again, trying to shed the brand of Southwest Texas, shed the party school brand, and like get their own unique like vibe. I'm hoping that we can continue that into this season and into the future. Like, if Texas State has 2 nationally televised games a year, that's a huge win. That's giant. Can we do that by 2027, 2028? Is that doable in the next 5 years, 6 years? I think so. Maybe.
Yeah. I think if this is the standard going forward, that's amazing, and to kind of have that turnaround and he's been here a month, 2 months, maybe.
Yeah, 2 months, man. I mean, look, we talked about this last week. You're like, what do we judge success by? Do we judge success by cool Twitter graphics? Do we judge success by cool names, what we're going to get into here? Or do we judge success by what happens on the field, right? And I'm of the opinion that on the field is what matters most. This is really nice. It's really cool. It gives us content to talk about. But at the end of the day, the final scoreboard is what going to matter most. The win-loss record is going to be what really dictates, like, is this a success or a failure?
Yeah, I agree.
There's no moral victory. A lot of podcasts, we talked about at the beginning, like starting this podcast, what you want, stuff like that, and whatever. There's a lot of different ways that you look at it. And Texas State fans, I think, for the longest time, for the past 6-7 years, have said moral victories. I've heard of more moral victories. I've heard more of like year zero. Remember that? Remember year zero with Spavital? Well, this doesn't really count. Withers' first season doesn't really count. It's year zero. There's no such thing, right? With Kenny, I don't want to hear it. If we go 2 and whatever this year, does not matter to me. That's a 2 and whatever season. That counts. Check's still clear. All right? Don't tell me. Clear. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. Like, don't tell me that this is a successful season if we win 2 games. Don't tell me this is a successful season if we win 1 game. The bar for success for Texas State, in my opinion, is bowl eligibility. Anything else under that is not. That is an unsuccessful season. I think that is where Texas State fans need to have their head at. And, again, it's January. We got a lot of time. That is what I'm saying now. 2023, do not tell me about year zero. That's a banned word on this podcast.
Banned word. So do you want to start with just some people that we do have now? What do you think?
I mean, we could. I mean, I want to talk about my guy. I want to talk about what this is going to do. So we said last week we were going to pick a signee, and this is what we're going to do. Pick a signee every week and go through it. And I had Amirian Atwood. He's 6-foot corner out of Mesquite, Texas, Horn High School. The Jaguars went 8-3 last year. Now, you talked about going all around Texas. Texas State is right now recruiting on average, again, the 45 whatever schools that we hit. Right now, the average record for those schools is, what would we say, 7-5, 7-6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like plus 600 or something.
600, like a 600 winning percentage. I looked at the combined, like as a combined 299 wins or whatever. That's good because, we talk a lot about winning culture. You go get a high school kid who's won. It doesn't need to be a state title, doesn't need to be a district title, but has just won games, has known what it's like to win. You bring them into college, and they're not going to like losing. So 8-3 Jaguars, 32 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 interceptions. That's huge, Jacob, because Texas State's defense, PFF, as Texas State football fans know, I'm not a big PFF fan. College football fans should not be a big PFF fan. They do not watch Group of 5 football until the end of the season. They ranked Texas State's defense as the number 1 defense last year in the Sun Belt, which is incorrect. If you watched Texas State play football last year, you know the defense was not good. It was a terrible defense. Texas State's defense allowed a 65% completion percentage, 18 passing touchdowns last year, and it was the middle of the pack when it comes to defensive efficiency. So I do not know what the guys over at PFF were ranking. I don't know what defense that they were watching, but I had a text earlier this week telling me that Texas State had the number 1 ranked defense according to PFF, which is not right. That was incorrect. That's a terrible grade for the Bobcats. Awful grade. That was a bad defense last year. Comparatively to the rest of the Sun Belt, terrible.
Or do you think it was like kind of like cowboyish, where the offense just was basically giving the ball away?
No,
they couldn't sustain
Marshall
drives and stuff like that.
Marshall was like that. Marshall was a team that the offense was so middle of the road in a lot of ways. The defense was stellar. Troy, another one. Troy's offense was clearly better than other teams. Their defense was great. South Alabama, great defense. Those were legit great defenses. Texas State defense was bad. And if you think that it was better than the 2018 squad with Brian London and those guys, I don't know what you're watching. I don't know what you're seeing. That was one of the worst defenses Texas State had put on the field in the last couple of years, in my opinion. Watching them, I didn't think it was impressive at all.
Yeah.
So getting a corner,
I thought it was cool stopping Baylor a couple times, but aside from that,
getting a 6-foot corner is so big in this conference, Jacob. This run, we are a very run first conference in the Sun Belt, but having a corner that can hope. I don't expect Atwood to be Deion Sanders in year 1. I do not expect him to be all conference in year 1, but I'm hoping at 6 foot, and I think it's like $120, $130. I'm hoping that by his sophomore, junior, senior year, you're looking at a guy that can make an actual impact on games, and maybe a defense in 2 or 3 years, if everything works the right way, that might be worth a PFF number 1 ranking in the Sun Belt.
I guess like Kinne has been known for this like high power offense. And so to see him target defensive guys, especially DBs, has been kind of like eye-opening to be like, oh, okay, no, like he's not just going to run up the score and then just kind of boom, boom, and back and forth and kind of ping pong with guys all day. Like we're going to go for stops. We're going to try and get takeaways. And we're going to put scores on the board from across, the team.
I'm gonna let you know now, Jakob. I don't know how much other Sun Belt conference football you watch outside of Texas State. If you try to boat race teams in the Sun Belt, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
Because the defenses are just too good. Like the defenses in the Sun Belt are legit defenses. We're talking like they could stop SEC offenses. They could stop Big Ten. Not beating Georgia or Ohio State. You're probably beating, a Georgia Tech. You know what I mean? Like these defenses are good. So to think that you're going to be able to put guys on the field to run the score up, I think that was a big faux pas on Spaz's part. I think he thought that the offense would be good enough to beat teams. That's not how this works. You got to have a balanced offense and a defense that can force a couple punts. If you can force, let's call it 4 punts a game, 4.5 punts a game, then you have a legit chance to win the conference. But if your defense can't stop anybody, and teams like South Alabama and Troy and App State a couple years ago can just nickel and dime you a chunk of yards away, you're going to lose a ton of games.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's your guy? Who did you have?
I got Dan Foster Jr. So also on the defense. He's a linebacker. He's the transfer out of Marshall. Before that, he was at a Dwyer High School. His hometown's in Florida. So, that's cool. They want to come over here. But he redshirted his freshman season. And then during that redshirt freshman season, when he came back the next year, he saw action in 8 games as a reserve defensive lineman, recorded 3 tackles. He was a 3-star quarterback out of rivals. He had offers from UAB, Georgia State, Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman, Alabama A&M. Pretty run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. 6'3", 240, though. And that's, I think, the big thing is that these guys just all fit that frame, Is like it doesn't matter what they did at their last school. These guys are what we need right here. Like we can teach him whatever, but like he's going to be this guy for us. We're not going to stretch a guy who's 5'9", 5'10" into this position that he really doesn't fit for our defensive scheme and what we're trying to do on the offensive side of the ball. Just take chances and try to run the score up.
I'll be curious to see what type of defense we run because we saw in the national championship against Georgia, granted TCU plays in the Big 12. It's not a super comparable conference to the Sun Belt, but they ran a really interesting concept, the 4-2-5, right? Where you have 5 DBs on the field. I don't think that that's something that would work in the Sun Belt with, like I mentioned, the amount of teams that just run the ball really well. we saw with Spav, he came in, he wanted to move a passing game, but the playbook just turned into what Withers had, which was screen passes, bubble pass. That's another one. If I see another screen pass, it'll be too soon. You know what I mean? Like, if I never see one again, it'll be too soon. I don't want to see short yardage plays in the passing game. If you're going to pass the ball, take a shot. I'm talking 10, 12 yards down the field. Don't give me hook and ladder. Don't give me curl routes. Don't keep down the playbook. Use it, but don't use it every play, you know?
Yeah. It's ironic that the Sun Belt is so run heavy because Texas State's been inept at the run, basically. You know, they can't get guys going at all.
What does that tell you about recruiting? You know, that's the topic we're on now. That just tells me that you're not recruiting to the conference. You're recruiting to your system. You know, and if you think that your system is good enough to beat great teams, Troy, App State, you know, then have at it. But the last two coaches haven't. Texas State historically has not been able to win games like that. So I think Kenny's smart. I think that he looks at the big thing about coaching is you got to learn from other people's failures. If you are making all the mistakes, then you're not learning from other people's mistakes. And I think the mistake is to think that you're going to have a good enough team offensively to beat these great defenses. Like, that's just not the best team. The best defense in the Sun Belt won the title this year, Troy. That should give you a blueprint to how to win games. So I'm glad they're recruiting defenses.
Yeah, it kind of goes into that, like, you know, you recruit a recruiting class, right? And then things start going wrong mid-season, right? You start off 0-4, God forbid, and that basically your season's done. And so you start flipping the script, or trying to, at least, to save either your job or your coach's jobs. And, you know, that's when you end up with these mismatches that it's like never made sense, but you have the best athlete on the field, but it won't necessarily fit the frame of the athlete or the defensive scheme either, you know? So
I really hope that we have a season that we don't end up having to change on the fly. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't want in week 4 have to learn a whole new defense or have to learn a whole new offense or have to add in a ton of stuff. Like, I would like it to work. I'd like it to work from the beginning. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but you know, again, we're in January. Got a lot of time to talk about this.
Yeah, we've had a lot of weird, like, Christmases where you go into the tree, you get exactly what you wanted, and you're like, oh my God, perfect. And then you start playing with it and it just falls apart in your hands. And you're like, what the hell, Dad? And Dad looks at you and goes, I won't be here in 3 years.
Yeah,
three Christmases,
more like,
Andrew.
Huh?
It's been 3 Christmases.
Yeah, I was going to say more like, you know, you get the present under the tree and Dad says, I'm not going to be here in 2 months because I'm going to get fired.
Yeah.
It's tough. You know, whatever. You put this in the rundown. You want to talk about guys taking shots at our Kenny?
Yeah, this is flowing perfectly, actually, because
break that down for me.
We do have to break down some just, like, drama in the Sun Belt, but mostly just Texas State. It's sports drama. It starts with Spav, right? He had this Sports Illustrated article that came out. The Cal team covering, you know, Spav and what he's trying to do. He brought in a couple quarterbacks and stuff like that. The first thing that he says is that basically kind of COVID and the NIL stuff and the transfer portal, a lot of uncharted waters for a first-year head coach. Okay, understandable, whatever, you know. Then he comes directly for the Bobcats and kind of the athletics administration as a whole. You know, because in the past he had been quoted as saying that like the infrastructure of Texas State wasn't sustainable for a football team. Like, he was having to go to San Marcos High to, you know, get some practices in and stuff like that. So he's talking about the quarterback specifically that he recruited over here. And he says that he brings an electric style of play that's going to be fun to see, what he can bring into the spring. And he's a player that Spavital couldn't have landed at Texas State, ? That's what the author says. Spav says, not even close. So it's kind of right there.
I don't know. Is it, though? Because the thing
it is and it is not. I mean, to say that you can't necessarily land people, like, it's like us going against UT almost. Like, it's different ball leagues, you know? It's like, well, duh, you know, it makes sense that you would get more guys over there. But we just landed a 4-star who is ranked better than the guy that Spav has.
Which I saw that, and I would like to remind fans that we talked about this last week, that stars do not necessarily matter in a lot of ways. If you want to play that game where it's like, oh, our quarterback is better than your quarterback that you recruited, then I'm all for that. But you mentioned like 90% of what he said wasn't wrong. The infrastructure is still really not there comparatively to other teams in the Sun Belt, comparatively to other teams in the area.
We're literally going under an end zone complex like campaign. Like, please help us get this done.
Yeah. So it's, I saw some of this drama, and I get it. You don't want your coach to talk bad about you. You saw Withers for 2 years kind of just take pot shots at Texas State. I think that's the world that we live in now.
More like popcorn shots.
Yeah, popcorn shots, I should say. Good call. I think that's kind of the world we live in now, where like coaches will kind of do this. What does that say about Tice? That he continues to hire? Like, this is 2 coaches. No, seriously. Like, I mean, I hate to kick a dead horse, but like that's 2 coaches that left your athletic building and took shots on their way out. Like, that kind of tells me that you did not hire mature adults, right?
Well, it's kind of like as messy as any athletic department,
Sure.
I'll say that, thank God Texas State's been able to stay out of some of the bigger headlines, like the University of Texas at Austin. I don't even have to say anything. I know everybody knows what I'm talking about. But it like stuff like that happens. And especially with Twitter, GJ is really good at Twitter. So I don't think he has a bad bone in his body, though, and he would do anything like that. But Withers is good at Twitter, still good at Twitter. Also, bringing it back to the Withers, right? That's the next thing. So we talked about spam. That's whatever. I always liked party in the end zone as a hashtag, and that's kind of where this started. So it starts with one of the Texas State guys. Shout out for listening to the podcast, and shout out for listening to Kev's podcast and keeping this whole community sustained. But he was talking about the party in the end zone hashtag compared to
Take Back Texas.
Yeah, Florida Atlantic, right? Where Withers is.
Oh, okay.
And so I think it's like something in paradise or
Party in Paradise.
No, it's let me pull it up just so I don't get it wrong. It is Winning in Paradise. Yeah, so you were close. And so they quote tweeted it and goes right up there with Party in the End Zone, lol. And then Withers quoted that and said, yeah, and Win Now or Agent Bent, which was kind of odd because that's definitely not what it was. And also kind of a shot at Kev. Kev, as everybody knows, is a great guy. Does a lot of great stuff. Texas State's lucky to have him consistently reporting on the Bobcats, because you had us that came in and then we did and then went about our professional careers. And now we're back. But Kef has been the constant light for this, rain or shine, Kef is there. And so Kef basically ratioed him because how much people were like, what the heck? What's this about? And there was a bunch of cool edits and stuff with Kef as a secret agent. And Kef's going by Agent Bent now. That's kind of funny. But it's just odd. That was a weird thing. Kef later tweeted that Everett Withers later apologized to him. Was like, hey, I'm sorry. I think I got mixed up or something like that. But an odd week for Texas State Twitter, I think.
No kidding. I'm glad that I try to stay above that. I'm glad that, that hasn't affected me yet. We'll see if I become a casualty to Texas State Twitter.
And then last week, everybody was talking about Malik Hornsby, and we cracked the case. Square and Pod cracked the case. Man. I got a tip from one of our guys, one of our listeners. Shout out, Rep the State, and he was saying, "Hey, there's rumors and stuff saying that Malik is in Nebraska. Can you confirm?" I guess he had posted some pics on Instagram and his Nebraska stuff or whatever. He's signed to Texas State. This is good. It's a done deal, So whatever. I also knew he was at Texas State before because my buddy Tommy Vasquez had posted a picture with Malik and GJ. He said the entire team in downtown Austin hanging out. So that was cool. And Tommy posted a picture. So I knew that I was.
Tell him how you figured this out.
Yeah. So the guy DMs me about, I guess like 9 or 10. I was asleep though, because I worked the morning show. So I woke up, I see it at 1. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because the office that I need to email this, the registrar's office in Nebraska closes at 4. So I shoot them a quick email. They get right back to me like 5 minutes later. They're like, hey, somebody's working on this for you. No worries. All you need to do this is the guy's name and the date of birth. Easy peasy. And so they were like, hey, he's not enrolled. See you.
Bingo. That's the thing about journalism, man, is that it doesn't take a whole lot. Not a whole lot of legwork here. It's just do A, get B, C is your results.
There you go.
Congratulations to Super Sleuth.
First
cracked the case.
Investigative report, kind of. Right? Aside from those contracts that we got back too, so
get back in the swing of things. Good for you, man.
Yeah, it's fun to flex our muscles a little bit, like that map that we built earlier. Doing the things that Texas State told us to do. So we're using it for the good of the podcast now.
Mm-hmm. Using it for the good.
I want to talk about men's basketball now. On kind of a 3-game skid. They're
free falling.
Yeah.
Free falling.
Yeah, I'm free.
I blame you for this. I blame you 100% for this.
Because I went to the Jeff Foster game?
Yeah. Well, that's not it. It's like
I blame those players at Marshall who beat up Mason Harrell. And he's not back yet.
We didn't talk about basketball, you and I. And we talk about Texas State sports every once in a while. But we didn't talk about Texas State basketball for I would say a good 2 years. Maybe 3. Maybe a solid 3 years. It didn't come up in casual conversation. And the second that we were like, all right, well, this is a staple podcast, we got to talk about it, they start losing.
Yeah.
They start losing. So let's start there, right? 3-game losing streak. They face Georgia Southern tonight, as we're recording this. 12-9, 5-3. It's the first time in 3 years that they're facing them. I don't think we win.
That all-time record is very lopsided too. I think Georgia Southern's up. I don't know by how much. My buddy McLean went to Georgia Southern. He's the editor-in-chief of their newspaper over there, and
I hate them.
He just whoops on us. Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of either of those. Shout out to Georgia schools, and I got duped by their football team, both of them, every year. I think that they're going to be better. I think they're going to be better than they are, and that rubs me the wrong way. But State was a 4 or 5 seed in 2019, won the conference. And then they did it again the next year. And they're going to do it again this year. Both of those Georgia schools in basketball are really good, sneakily good. We're talking they steal a game from a Power 5 school every once in a while in the tournament. They might win. They might win a game in the tournament. And you're like, I don't like that. I'm not a big fan. That doesn't rub me the wrong way. Now, shout out, if this was a Sunbelt pod, I'd be like, whoa, Texas State, we're in a good conference. The conference does really well. But as a Texas State fan, not a big fan.
Yeah,
not a big fan of losing. Not a fan of losing. And I'm saying it now. I don't think we're going to win this game. I think we're going to lose 4 in a row, Jacob. No Mason Harrell. You mentioned getting beat up against Marshall. We find out for the rib injury, if it's a calf injury.
I texted Philip and the SID at Texas State, and he didn't have an update. So.
Yeah, I don't.
I've just heard rumors that it could be a rib or something. I dapped Mason up when I saw him at the Jeff Foster night game. So.
How tall are you, Jacob?
I'm 5'7".
Let me ask you: did you look up to him, or is you eye level?
He was sitting down, thankfully, but it did go through my head. Yeah, but he's definitely taller than me. He's got to be 5'9" at least.
He's 5'9". He's listed at 5'9". Now that's why I was asking, because I figured you and him standing, you could actually give us is he 5'9"?
Yeah, I know for sure he's 5'9".
Okay.
Yeah, can verify as a guy who's 2 inches shorter than that.
That's fine. In his absence, we've had a couple of guys kind of stepping up. Jordan Mason had a career high 19. Had double figures. I don't know, man. This basketball team, you don't want to sell out in January, but man, I just do not have good vibes right now. Maybe it's a 3-game losing streak. I just don't feel confident in that.
Do you want to hear this quote from Terrence Johnson? This is the most damning quote I've ever heard him say, to be honest. He said, sorry, I can't fucking read. Basically, he said this team struggles with believing. That's not a good quote. Not a good quote.
Is that a Ted Lasso quote?
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel like a Ted Lasso kind of thing? A real positivity. You throw that up there. I don't know, man. It's just I don't know. There's a lot.
It's just they lack experience. The team's young, they're good. Obviously, Jordan Mason's going to be a great player next year or
obviously
year after. Yeah, obviously.
He's obviously on there.
Obviously, man. I don't know. It was nice to be back at Strand and see the team in person because they're very good. But they're playing behind the lead all the time. I can tell you the time possession right now. Time with the lead, Louisiana Lafayette, 30 minutes. Texas State, 6.
I like this. They slipped this in here in the notes for tonight's game. 7th time, talking about that Louisiana loss, 7th time Sun Belt Conference action, the Bobcats have held the opponent under 62 points. So it's not defense. You know what I mean? Like when you do that, it's not defense that's the problem here. What's the problem? Putting the ball in the hole?
Continue to not score, yeah.
Yeah, Mason Harrell, he is 13 points away from KGT's in 7th spot. Does that excite you? Does that make you happy? He's going to be he's a top 10 scorer already. When he came in, I kind of was like, is he going to be a top player? Right? Like I thought he would be the sidekick to Nigel potentially winning the Sun Belt at some point, and that did not come to fruition. So him being a top 10 scorer, I think it's a successful career.
Oh yeah,
I would, however, like to put Sun Belt champions, like tournament champions, up on the deal. Regular season,
not regular season. You want to win the tourney.
I would like to win the tourney. I would like to get that bid. to the NCAA tournament once with Mason.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that 1997 team, still the last in program history to do it. So since we've been alive,
that's what I'm saying. Like you do the math in your head, and you're like 97. That was 20. Like what? It's 26 years ago now.
25, or 24, 25, depending on whenever they did it. It was March 97. So
well, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be 26 years in a couple months, in 2 months. That's a long time, man. That's a long time, especially when you look at the rest of the teams in the conference. Like I said, if this is a Sun Belt pod, man, Sun Belt every year putting good teams in. But as a Texas State fan, man, like I look up at that and I'm like, there should be of the times we've won the regular season. How many times have you gone to the tournament thinking we have a real good shot at winning the conference tournament? Like not like there's 4 or 5 teams that could win it, but like you think we should win it. Like I can think like 3 or 4 times where we went into the tournament thinking we should win this.
Mm-hmm.
And to it be 26, potentially 26 years if we don't get it done this year, it's a long time. That's a quarter of a century.
Big drought. Those guys are old now. I can verify that too.
It's just look, and Texas State fans, there's so much to be happy about. We can play that game. Like, look at all the success, look at the regular season, stuff like that. And I'm cool. I'm all for that. I just want better. I want that NCAA tournament bid, and I think 2020 got robbed from us. I think that we would win it in 2020. I made the T-shirt, print the T-shirts, Sun Belt champions 2020. But would have been nice, would have been cool.
Yeah, that 2020 team was so good. It is so sad that it happened the way it happened, and COVID basically ruined our senior year and their season.
Mostly their season,
but their season. But that's the reason Mason's still here. Got that COVID year.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because if we didn't have Mason, this would be a lot worse.
Yes, that is 1,000% correct. 10 and 11, 3-5 in the Sun Belt. What do you think the final one is?
I don't know.
Do you think they finish 500?
Yeah, they can finish 500. It's just whether or not they're going to be a first round out or they take it all. I don't know, but it's so weird. This team is so hot and cold,
If they win tonight, and again, we're recording this before they play. If they win tonight, next week when we do this podcast, totally different vibe. But if they lose 4 in a row, Jacob, and they fall to 3-6 through 12 games, I'm leaning first round out. That's just me.
If they can win games and sustain a winning pattern without Mason, I mean, I want Mason to come back, obviously, like everybody else. But if they can do that, that's very good.
Yeah, of course.
But the women don't have that problem. So
no.
And this is actually be a pretty good year, I think, for them to try to take it all and to get Coach Z not only the all-time wins record that she already has and is continuing to set with every win that she gets, but I mean, she's going to do that for the rest of her career. So, to get this team of seniors out on a tournament win, maybe even a bid, that'd be great. I think.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
They're in Virginia.
And we talked about this when
they're in Virginia tonight against
Old Dominion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, when she broke the record, we talked about look at the career as a whole in totality. Like, what do we think about this? What do we think about that? Right. And she got to this point faster than I think anybody else has in Texas State women's basketball history.
You said she was averaging like 12 games or 12 wins a game.
Averaging like 12 wins a year. Yeah. So it's like, that is really good. That's really, really good. So you would like to see that end with a tournament win. I don't know if she's going anywhere. I hope that she's not. I hope that she coaches her whole career here, because it would be really cool to see her do and continue to get these recruits in. But you got to remember, Jacob, she's young, relatively, compared to the other coaches in women's basketball. She's pretty young. So if you are a Texas State fan, appreciate it, because you never know when that's going to leave. You never know when the bigger pond will go. Now, can Texas State turn into that big pond? Yeah. But currently, you'd be lying to yourself to say that if a bigger job opportunity opened up for Coach Z, that she wouldn't take it. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping, like I said, that she wins the Sun Belt, gets a tournament bid, plays in the NCAA tournament. But just know that those are the things that, like, that happens, and then you get a new coach pretty soon after that. That's just how Texas State rolls.
Yeah, no, if they don't go out in the first round, the NCAA tournament, right? Assuming they win the conference tournament, get an at-large bid. I mean, there's going to be calls off the chain for Coach Z for what she's done for Texas State and, what she's done in the postseason. So, yeah, looking forward to continued success for that team, because it looks like they have, what they need right now, and they just need to keep racking up wins, keep moving their way up into the standings, and try to get that favorable seed position, because we saw that happened, our junior year when they were first round out. Didn't come in hot, weren't favored by a lot, and it showed.
Yeah. So what would you put like right now in January? You're most excited for what sport?
Most excited for baseball, definitely.
Really?
They already sold. They're setting a record right now for the most season tickets that they're selling so far, and they already filled like all the seats for their leadoff dinner. That's like their big kind of fundraising stuff that they do at the beginning of the year. They have guest speakers and stuff like that. I'm sure you've been seeing it. If you follow the Bobcat Club on Twitter, they've been posting a bunch of stuff about it. But yeah, definitely excited for baseball. Team, I think right now that could win, definitely women's basketball. Not that I don't like this men's team, but it's just like, the wins aren't happening. So they only have 5 more home games too, before they go to Pensacola for that tourney. So
awful place to have the tournament too. Just
bring it back to NOLA.
Just awful. Of all the places, Pensacola, man. Like, you look at the rest of the teams, we don't even have a team in Florida. Like, there's not a Sunbelt team that plays basketball in Florida. So why is it in Pensacola? Like,
begs the question.
Atlanta, New Orleans. Those would be the 2 prime spots. And if we're gonna go anywhere, do it there. Do it in New Orleans, man. Like, whatever. That's whatever. Terrible.
Quick shout outs for the week. Cedrica Wynn. She's won the Sunbelt Athlete of the Week. This is after her dominating performance in Lubbock. So she now has like 4 of the top 5 fastest times in the 60-meter hurdles. She's amazing. She does everything. And softball, talking about spring sports, Mullins. They listed Jessica Mullins as the 2023 Collegiate Player of the Year award list. So she's a beast. Definitely watch out for her in the spring.
Sunbelt Texas State always has the best pitcher. You can count on that. Sun rising in the east, setting in the west. Texas State having a great softball pitcher.
Episode 9. Peace.
Thanks for listening. New episodes out every Thursday. Follow the boys on Twitter. Eat 'em up. Eat 'em up.